Zoe sits on a plastic chair by the window. The sky outside is gray. She looks at the bed. Jin lies under a thin blanket. His black hair is plastered to his forehead. His face is pale, his cheekbones more prominent than before. He's lost weight in the last 3 weeks. A lot! His hands lie on top of the blanket. Their fingers relaxed, but not in the way they are when he's sleeping peacefully. They look heavy, as if he doesn't even have the strength to clench them into a fist. The device next to the bed emits a steady sound, the same as yesterday, the same as a week ago. Zoe already knows the rhythm by heart. She can close her eyes and guess when the next signal will sound. Jin opens his eyes. He looks at the ceiling, then slowly turns his head towards her. His gaze is hazy, as if he's looking through her, not at her. "You're here," he says. His voice is quiet, almost a whisper. "I'm here," Zoe answers. He tries to smile, but it comes out weak. His lips tremble. He closes his eyes, and within seconds, falls asleep again or loses consciousness. Zoe no longer distinguishes between these states. There's a knock at the door. A doctor in a white coat enters, followed by a nurse with a tablet. The doctor looks at the screen, then at the chart he's holding. He's in his 50s. He looks tired, but not because he's worried about his patient. He's just busy. "How is he?" Zoe asks. The doctor raises his head. He looks at her, then at Jean. "The condition is stable," he says. Zoe waits for a continuation. There is none. "He hasn't eaten for 4 days now," she says. "He can't get up." He says 2 words and then passes out. "It's not a stable condition." The doctor sighs and places the chart on the table by the bed. "We're carrying out all the necessary procedures. The treatments are working, but your husband's health is very weakened. Sometimes these crises last longer than we'd like." "A crisis of what?" Zoe asks. "What's wrong with him?" The doctor is silent for a few seconds. Then he throws up his hands. "It's a complicated case. We're running tests, but there's no clear picture yet. The numbers are fluctuating. One thing today, another tomorrow. It takes time." "How long has it been?" Zoya's voice hardens. 3 weeks. You say the same thing every morning." The nurse lowers her eyes. The doctor adjusts his glasses. "We're doing everything we can," he says. "The main thing now is to maintain his strength. The crisis will end and things will improve." He leaves. The nurse follows him. Zoe is left alone in the room. She looks at the IV. The clear liquid falls into the tube, drop by drop. Zoe counts to 10, then loses count. She doesn't know what this liquid is. No one explains it to her. She just sits and watches the drops fall down, into Jin's hand, into his body. She takes his hand. The skin is cold. Her fingers don't squeeze back. Zoe sits there for a long time. The light outside the window changes from gray to dark. The ceiling lamp in the room turns on. It glows with a steady white light that doesn't warm. The next morning, Zoe goes out into the hallway to buy water from the vending machine at the end of the floor. The corridor is long, with white walls and a gray floor. It smells of disinfectant. She walks slowly, her legs numb from sitting for so long. Near the elevator, she notices a group of people. 3 men in expensive clothes stand in a semicircle. In the center is a man she hasn't seen before. Tall, his hair slicked back, a smile on his face that doesn't fade even when he's not speaking. He's about 30. He's explaining something to the head doctor, who stands tense, his shoulders raised. Zoe stops at the machine. She hears snatches of conversation. "A report on the 3rd floor," the man says with a smile. "I'll check it out myself." The head doctor nods too quickly. The man turns and notices Zoe. His gaze glides down her. She's wearing simple pants and a sweater. Her hair is pulled back into a bun. She hasn't slept well in many nights, and it shows. "Are you the wife of the patient from room 112? He asks. Zoe doesn't answer right away. She presses the button on the machine and waits for the bottle to drop into the tray. "Yes," she says, raising the water. The man takes a step towards her. He extends his hand. "My name is Sun. I am the manager of this clinic." Zoe looks at his hand, then at his face. She shakes his hand. The handshake is firm, too firm for a simple introduction. "Do you know my husband?" she asks. Sleep smiles wider. "We're old friends. Jean and I started out together. When I found out he was here, I personally asked the doctors to give him maximum attention." 3 weeks, Zoe says. "He's been here 3 weeks. This is the first time I've seen you." Sun's smile doesn't change, but his eyes change. For a second, something appears in them that Zoe can't read. Then it's gone. Business, he says. But I'll come by more often now. Jean is my friend. I'll do everything to make him feel better. He says this with warmth in his voice. But Zoe feels cold. She can't explain why. Something in his words simply doesn't match the way he looks at Jin's room door. Thank you, she says. Sun nods and leaves with his men. Their footsteps fade away at the end of the corridor. Zoe stands by the vending machine, a bottle of water in her hand. She watches the manager leave. His concern seems too loud, too noticeable, as if he wants everyone to see how good he is. She returns to the room. Jean doesn't wake up. Zoe sits down on a chair, places the water on the windowsill, and looks at her husband. Sun's face gets stuck in her head, the smile that doesn't fade, the eyes that don't smile. That evening, Zoe goes out into the hallway to make a phone call. The connection in the room is poor, so she has to go to the window at the end of the floor. She talks to her sister, briefly. She says that Jean is still in the hospital, that there's no improvement, that the doctors don't know what's going on. The sister offers to come over. Zoe says that's not necessary yet. Having finished the conversation, she goes back. The corridor is empty. The light is on only through one lamp, so it is dark at the far end. She passes the nurse's station. There's no one behind the glass. The desk is littered with papers. The computer monitor is off. Zoe continues on. She's almost to the door to Jin's room when she hears a voice. A voice comes from the utility room. The door is ajar. The light is on inside. Zoe stops. She doesn't want to eavesdrop, but the voice belongs to Nurse Jen, the one working the night shift. Jen is talking on the phone. Her voice is quiet, but her words are clearly audible in the empty hallway. Yes, I understand, says Jen. But you saw the tests yourself. Pause. No, there's no improvement. And there won't be. My body can't cope. Another pause. Jean sighs. Honestly, I'd say a couple of years. Tops. If it weren't for this crisis, maybe longer. But right now, she falls silent. Listens. Yes, I know. I don't tell anyone. But you asked. I'm answering. A couple of years, no more. Zoe stands in the hallway. She doesn't move. Her hands are clenched into fist. Jen continues talking, but Zoe can't make out the words anymore. The blood rushes in her ears. All she hears is one thing. A couple of years. A couple of years. She takes a step back, then another. She turns and walks toward Jin's room. The door closes quietly behind her. She sits down on a chair. She looks at Jean. His face is calm. He is breathing evenly. The machine makes its usual sound. Zoe isn't crying. She's sitting up straight, looking at her husband, and counting her breaths. 1, 2, 3. She thinks about what Jen said. A couple of years. Crisis. The body can't cope. She thinks about the doctors who shrug their shoulders. About Sonia, who smiles and says he'll do anything. Something's wrong here. Zoe doesn't know what, but she feels it in her whole body. She takes Jin's hand. His fingers are cold. She squeezes them and doesn't let go. The next morning, Zoe returns home. She drives, parks in front of the building, and goes up to the apartment. It's quiet inside. Everything here reminds her of Jean. His cup on the table, his jacket on the hanger. She walks into the bedroom, opens the closet. Her gaze falls on the dress hanging at the edge. Silk, ivory. She bought it a year ago for Jean's birthday. He said it suited her, said the white against her black skin looked like light. Zoe takes a dress off the hanger. She takes off her sweater and pants and puts on the dress. The fabric glides over her body. She looks at herself in the mirror. Her white, curly hair falls below her waist. She hasn't brushed it for 2 days, but it still looks beautiful. She wants to look different, not like a woman who hasn't slept for many nights, not like a woman who was told her husband only has a couple of years left. She wants to be seen. Zoe returns to the hospital. She enters through the main entrance, not the usual back one. Her heels click on the tiles. She walks toward the elevator. In the elevator, she notices people staring at her. A woman with a child in the corner of the elevator looks from her face to her hair, then to her dress. The child stares openly, the way children do. Zoe gets out on her floor and walks down the hallway. The nurses at the station fall silent as she passes. One of them, a young, wide-eyed woman, looks at her with surprise. The other, older, quickly looks away. Zoe knows what she looks like. Black skin, waist-length white hair, a silk dress. In this place where everyone wears gray and white, she's a splash of color. She doesn't fit in. She's always been out of place here, but now she doesn't care. She reaches Jin's room and opens the door. Inside the dream, he's sitting on a chair by the bed, legs crossed. He's holding a phone in his hand, staring at the screen. When the door opens, he looks up. Seeing Zoe, he freezes for a second. His eyes travel over her hair, her dress, her face. A smile appears, but not immediately, as if he needs time to remember how to do it. "You look impressive," he says. Zoe closes the door. She approaches the bed. Jin is asleep. She sits down in her usual chair, the one by the window. "What are you doing here?" she asks. Sun puts the phone in his pocket. "I came to visit a friend. I told you so." "He's sleeping," Zoe says. "It doesn't matter. I just want to be close. We've been through a lot together." Zoe looks at Sona. She notices his gaze sliding over her hair again. He tries to do it discreetly, but it doesn't work. "Don't you think you care too much?" she asks. Sleep smiles. "Friends are never too caring. Friends appear on the first day, not on the third week." Silence falls over the room. Sleep stops smiling. He looks at Zoe, and in his gaze appears something she saw yesterday. Something hard, hidden beneath the smooth surface. "I'm a busy man," he says. "But now I'm here." He stands up, straightens his jacket. "If you need anything, please contact me." He leaves. Zoe watches him go. She hears his footsteps in the hallway. They move away slowly, as if he doesn't want to leave. Zoe glances at Jin. He's still asleep. She looks at his hands, at the tubes leading to them. Something's wrong here. She knows it, and now she's going to find out what it is. Zoe doesn't sleep at night. She sits on a chair and watches as a nurse changes an IV. It's a new nurse, not General Young, with quick movements. She checks something on the screen, disconnects the old bottle, connects a new one. Zoe watches her hands. "Wait," she says. The nurse turns around. "What?" Zoe stands up. She approaches the bed. She looks at the tubes, at the connection point, at the bottle the nurse just removed. "You've connected to the wrong port," Zoe says. The nurse looks at her with bewilderment. "Everything is connected correctly," she says. "I do this every day." "No," Zoe points to where the tube enters the system. "The solution should go through this filter. You connected it directly, without a filter." The nurse looks where Zoe is pointing. Her face changes. She sees a mistake. "That?" She trails off. "I'll fix it now." She quickly reconnects the tubes. Her hands are shaking slightly. Zoe stands nearby and watches. When the nurse finishes, she looks up at Zoe. "How do you know?" she asks. Zoe doesn't answer. She sits back down in her chair. The nurse leaves. Zoe is left alone. She looks at her hands. She hasn't thought about this for years. About what she was taught. About how much time she spent in hospitals, but on the other side. Before she met Jean. Before her life became different. She was a medic. A good medic. She knew the solutions, the filters, the systems, the protocols. She knew how the body worked, how it was treated, and how it could be broken. She looks at the vial hanging on the counter. She looks at the tubes. She looks at Jean's arm, where the needle is inserted. A picture is beginning to form in her head. Not a complete one, but the first details are there. She gets up, walks out into the hallway, heads to the nurse's station. Behind the glass sits Jen, the one who was talking on the phone. She's drinking coffee and reading something on her phone. "I need the medical records," Zoe says. "Everything, for 3 weeks." Jen raises his head. He looks at Zoe, at her dress, at her face. She sees that this woman isn't asking. She's demanding. "I can't just—" "You can," Zoe interrupts. "And you will." Jen is silent for a few seconds. Then he nods. She opens the cabinet behind her, takes out a thick folder, then another. "That's all," she says. Zoe takes the folders. She feels their weight. "And the key to the room where the medications are kept," she says. "I need access to the inventory log." Jen looks at her in surprise, but she sees something in Zoya's eyes that compels her to comply. She takes the key from the desk drawer and hands it to him. Zoe takes the key. She goes into the empty office at the end of the hall. She turns on the light. She places the folders on the desk. She sits down. She opens the first folder and starts reading. The office is small. A desk, a chair, and a computer that doesn't turn on. Calendars and schedules hang on the walls. The window overlooks the courtyard, where it's dark. Zoe lays out the papers in front of her. She starts from the very first day. She reads quickly. Her eyes skim the lines, searching for details others would miss. She knows what normal values should look like. She knows how the numbers should change if the treatment is working. She sees that Jin's indicators are fluctuating, but not like they would with an illness. Not like they would with an illness would with an illness. Not like they would in a natural progression. She sees some numbers dropping too quickly, others rising too sharply. It's as if something is entering her body that shouldn't be there. Zoe turns to the prescription chart. Every day, every medication, every dose. She writes the names in a notebook she found in her desk drawer. She sees the standard list. Anti-inflammatory, supportive, vitamins. Nothing out of the ordinary. But something doesn't add up. She looks at the dates, compares the days when Jean got worse with the days when his prescriptions changed. She sees a pattern. Every time a new drug appeared on the chart, Jean's condition worsened within 2 days. Every time. Zoe puts the chart aside. She picks up the medication log. It's a thick notebook with a blue cover. It records how many of each solution arrived in the department and how much was used. She starts checking, page by page, digit by digit. She reaches the section with the medication they started giving Jean in the second week. She looks at the date it was received. She looks at the quantity. She looks at how much was written off. The numbers don't add up. According to the journal, 30 ampoules were used. According to the prescription card, Jean received 20. 10 ampoules were not accounted for anywhere. Zoe rereads the numbers. Again and again. 10 ampoules. They're not in the write-off log. They're not in Jean's chart. They're gone. She looks at the clock on the wall. 3 o'clock in the morning. She takes the key Jen gave her. She goes out into the hallway and goes to the room where the drugs are kept. The door creaks open. It's cold inside. Shelves full of boxes. A refrigerator against the wall. It smells of medicine. Zoe finds a locker containing the drug she's looking for and opens the box. There are empty seats inside. 10 empty seats. She closes the box and puts it back. Leaves the room. Returns to the office. Sits at the table. She knows someone is taking the medication. She doesn't write it off. She doesn't add it to the cards. She just takes it. Question. Where is he going? Question. To whom? Zoe closes the folders. She's not finished, but she already knows what she needs to look for next. Not on paper. Inside. The next morning, Zoe doesn't leave the hospital. She waits for the day shift to begin. She sees the nurses arrive, change, and take their places. She sees Jen go home, glancing at her briefly. She sees the new nurse, the one who made a mistake with the IV, checking the supplies in the medication cart. Zoe approaches her. I need access to the safe, she says. The nurse looks at her with fear. I don't have a key, she says. Only the head nurse and the manager. Where is the head nurse? She has a day off. Zoe nods. She's not surprised. She returns to Jean's room. He doesn't wake up. She sits down on a chair and waits. At noon, she sees Song walking down the hallway. He walks toward the nurse's station, says something, laughs. Then he heads toward an office at the other end of the floor. Zoe gets up. She goes to the nurse's station. There's no one behind the glass. Everyone's at lunch. She goes behind the counter, looks at the drawers. One of them is locked. She tries the handle. Locked. She takes a thin metal plate from her pocket, part of a paper clip she'd bent open the night before. She inserts it into the lock. Turns. Click! She opens the drawer. Inside are keys. Lots of them. She takes the one marked safe. He goes into the storage room. He finds a safe in the wall, closed with a heavy door. He inserts the key. He turns it. The door opens. Inside are boxes of medications, expensive ones, the ones that are stored separately, the ones that are monitored most strictly. Zoe starts counting. She checks it against the logbook she brought with her. She sees a discrepancy. Not just one. Many. But one catches her eye. A drug used for severe cases. One that wasn't prescribed to Jean. One that's rarely used in this department. According to the log, there should be 20 ampoules in the safe. She counts. 21. One extra. Zoe looks at the ampoule. She can't understand how an extra ampoule could end up in the safe. Medications don't just appear out of nowhere. They're brought in, accounted for, and written off. If there's an extra one, that means there's a shortage somewhere. She remembers 10 missing ampoules from the regular storage room. And one extra here. She doesn't know if these things are connected, but she knows it's wrong. She closes the safe, puts the key away, returns to the office. We need more. We need proof. Zoe is looking forward to the evening. She knows that nurses dispose of used ampoules in special containers. The containers are taken away at the end of their shift. She has until midnight. She goes into the utility room where the containers are. 3 plastic bins with lids. Each one has a label. Sharps, glass, other. She opens the glass container. There are ampoules inside. Dozens of them. Small, large, labeled, unlabeled. She looks at them. It smells of medicine and something sour. She starts to sort through them. She's looking for ampoules of the drug that's missing from the inventory. The one that disappeared from the warehouse. She finds 3. Empty. With labels. She puts them in the bag she brought with her. Then she finds 2 more. But these look different. They have no labels. Just clear glass with some liquid left at the bottom. Zoe holds one up to the light. There's something inside. Not just clear liquid. There's sediment visible at the bottom. Fine, white, like sand. She sniffs. There is no smell. She takes out her phone, turns on the flashlight. It shines through the glass. The sediment does not dissolve. It lies on the bottom in a dense layer. Zoe doesn't know what it is, but she does know that a normal preparation shouldn't leave sediment. Ever. She puts the ampoules in a bag, closes the tank, leaves the utility room. She goes into the office. She sits down at the desk. She looks at 3 ampoules with labels and 2 without. She recalls her old knowledge. Some substances leave a precipitate when mixed. Some poisons are invisible in solution, but leave a trace when dried. She can't check it here. She needs a lab. She needs someone to do the analysis. But first, she needs to figure out how these ampoules got into the tank and who put them there. She looks at her watch. It's 8 o'clock in the evening. She decides she won't sleep tonight. She'll watch. Zoe sets up the phone on the windowsill in Jin's room. She points the camera at the door and starts recording. She's been doing this every night for 3 days now. Nothing has happened. On the 4th evening, it happens. The footage shows the door opening at 2 in the morning. A nurse enters. Not Jen, another one. The one working the night shift. Her movements jerky. The nurse approaches the IV stand. She looks at the bottle. She checks something on her tablet. Then she looks back. The room is dark. Zoya is gone. She's sitting in the office at the end of the hall, watching the proceedings on her phone. The nurse thinks she's alone. The nurse takes a bottle out of her pocket. It's small and unlabeled. She unplugs the old bottle and attaches the new one. She puts the old one in her pocket. It all takes less than a minute. The nurse comes out. Zoe looks at the clock on the recording. 2 hours and 17 minutes. She fast-forwards a few minutes. At 2:23, Sun enters the room. He didn't turn on the light. He stands by the bed, looking at Jean. There's no smile on his face. No expression at all. He looks at the IV, checks something, nods to himself. Then it comes out. Zoe replays the recording until she returns to the room. It's 6 in the morning. She sees the nurse come in. She sees Sun come in. She sees them not crossing paths, but being in the room just minutes apart. She understands the scheme. The nurse changes the bottle. Then Sun comes in to make sure everything is done correctly. Zoe saves the recording and copies it to 2 devices. Now she has proof. She is waiting for the morning. At 8 in the morning, Zoe goes to Sun's office. The door is closed. She knocks. Silence. She knocks again. "Come in," she hears a voice. She opens the door. Sun is sitting at the table. In front of him is a laptop and a cup of coffee. On the wall behind him are diplomas and photographs. In one of them, he is next to Jin. Both are younger, both are smiling. Sleep looks up. He sees Zoe, his eyebrows rise. "You're early," he says. Zoe closes the door behind her. She turns the key in the lock. The click sounds loud in the silence. Sleep looks at the door, then at Zoe. No smile appears. "What are you doing?" he asks. Zoe walks up to the table. She sits down on the chair opposite. She places her phone on the table. "I know what you're doing," she says. Sleep looks at her. His face is calm. "I don't understand what you're talking about." "You see," Zoe says, "the substance they add to the solution. I found sediment in the ampoules. I saw the nurse changing the bottle before you arrived." Sleep doesn't move. His eyes narrow. "You're not yourself," he says quietly. "Grief can—" "No need," Zoe interrupts. She opens her phone. She shows the recording. The screen shows a nurse entering the room and changing the bottle. Sun looks at the screen. His face doesn't change. That doesn't prove anything, he says. The nurse is doing her job. Then why is she changing the unlabeled bottle at 2 in the morning? Zoe asks. Why are 10 ampoules missing from the inventory log? Why is there an extra one in the safe? Sun leans back in his chair. He looks at Zoe for a long time. A very long time. Then he smiles. But this smile is not like the ones before. It is cold. You are smarter than I thought, he says. He gets up, walks to the window, stands with his back to Zoya. Jean was my friend, he says. But business is business. He got in the way. He always got in the way. Zoe sits up straight. Her voice is even. You are killing him. The dream is turning. I'm letting him go quietly, without noise, without questions. He takes a step towards the table. But you don't want to be at peace, do you? Sleep approaches the table, opens a drawer, takes out a briefcase. Black, flat. He puts it in front of Zoe and opens it. There's money inside. Packets. New, crisp. 1 million, says Sun. Any currency. You choose. Zoe looks at the money. Doesn't move. This is enough for the best treatment in any country, Sun continues. You will find doctors. You will cure him. I give you my word. Your word, Zoe says. You're poisoning my husband. I'm stopping. Sun sits on the edge of the table. You take the money. I change the protocol. Jin gets real treatment. He recovers. You leave. Everyone survives. And you are left with what you wanted. Sun shrugs. I get what I need. You get what you need. The genie gets life. He looks at Zoe, waiting. You're a smart woman, he says. You understood what no one else did. So you'll understand this too. Now you'll say no, and I'll take the money away. But then, in a month or two, when nothing changes, you'll regret it. I'm giving you a chance now. Zoe looks at the case. Then she looks at Sona. Do you think I'll take the money? I think you love your husband. And love sometimes requires making decisions you don't like. Zoe stands up. She looks at Sona, looks at the money, then closes the case. The click of the lock sounds solid. No, she says. Sun's smile fades. It doesn't disappear completely, but it changes. He's not used to hearing rejection. You don't understand. I understand everything, Zoe interrupts. You're offering to buy my husband's life at the price of his silence. You want me to leave and pretend I don't know anything. You want me to take your money and feel at peace. She takes a step towards the door. I won't take your money. I won't keep quiet. Sleep rises. His face becomes hard. If you tell me, he says quietly, no one will believe you. Who are you? My wife. Who am I? I am the owner of this hospital. I have connections. I have people. You only have words. Zoe stops at the door, turns around. I have the notes, she says. I have the ampoules. I have the nurse's testimony, if I talk to her correctly. She looks at Sona straight. And I have a husband. When he gets up, he'll ask what happened to him. And I'll tell him the truth. Sleep is silent. His face is calm, but his hands are clenched into fists on the table. You're making a mistake, he says. No, says Zoe. You made a mistake when you assumed I'd keep quiet. She opens the door. She goes out. She doesn't look back. Zoe returns to the room, closes the door, approaches the bed. Jin is awake. His eyes are open, staring at the ceiling. He heard her enter. Zoe, he says quietly. His voice is weak but clear. She sits on the edge of the bed. She takes his hand. Jin, she says, I need to tell you something. She leans closer. She speaks in a whisper. She doesn't know if there are bugs in the room. She doesn't know who might hear. But she knows what she must say. She tells everything. About the medications. About the discrepancies in the journals. About the ampoules without labels. About the recording of the nurse changing the bottle. About the conversation with Sun. About the case with the money. She speaks quickly but calmly, the words falling one after another. Jin listens. His face doesn't change. Only his eyes grow darker. He looks at Zoe and she sees something happening inside him. Not anger, not fear, understanding. I knew it, he says finally, his voice even quieter than before. Zoe freezes. What? I knew he wanted to get rid of me, says Jean. I didn't know how, but I knew he wouldn't stop. He squeezes her hand. There's almost no strength, but she feels the movement. You saved me, he says. I didn't save you. I just understood. You understand. That's enough. He closes his eyes, breathing heavily. We're leaving here, he says. Today, Zoe looks at him, at his weak body, at the tubes, at the machines. You can't, she says. I can. He opens his eyes. You will help. Zoe waits until the evening. She knows that at 7 o'clock in the evening, the shift change occurs. A new nurse takes over. At this hour, the ward is bustling. No one looks around. She disconnects the machines. Quickly, just like they taught her years ago. She knows which tubes can be removed and which ones should be left in place. She leaves only the IV with a simple solution. Nothing extra. Gene opens his eyes. She helps him sit up. It's hard. His body doesn't obey. He leans against her, and she feels him tremble. Slowly, she says. He nods. She helps him swing his legs off the bed. He sits hunched over, breathing heavily. His fingers squeeze her hand. The grip is weak, almost no strength, but he holds on. I'm with you, Zoe says. I won't let go. He raises his head. He looks at her. In his eyes, she sees what she remembers from the first day they met. Stubbornness. The desire to live. Lead the way, he says. She lifts him. He stands up. His legs are shaking. He almost falls, but she holds him. They take a step, then a second. The door is open. The corridor is empty. Zoe leads Jin to the elevator. Every step is laborious. He leans his whole body against her. She doesn't feel the weight. She feels only his hand in hers. The fingers clench, weakly, but they clench. He's holding on. She leads. They leave the hospital into the darkness of the evening. The car is parked at the service entrance. Zoe opens the door and helps Gene in. He falls into the seat. His breathing is rapid, but he looks at her and smiles. A weak smile. The weakest she's ever seen. But it's a smile. Let's go, he says. Zoe gets behind the wheel, starts the car, drives out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, the hospital building grows smaller. The lights go out around the corner. She looks at the road. Jin, sitting next to her in the seat, has closed his eyes, but his hand is on her shoulder. His fingers are still clenched, weakly, but firmly. The morning begins as usual. The sun rises over the hospital building. The nurses come on shift. Jen brings coffee and a tablet with the procedure schedule. She opens the door to room 112. The bed is empty. The sheets are rumpled, but cool. The machines are turned off. The IV is hanging on the stand, the tube dangling down. A needle at the end. No signs of a struggle. No disorder. Jean stands in the doorway for a few seconds. She doesn't understand what she's seeing. She goes inside and checks the bathroom. Empty. She checks the closet. There are no things. No phone. Nothing. She walks out into the hallway. She approaches the desk. She looks at the computer. She opens the patient's medical record. Her fingers tremble as she types. A recording appears on the screen. Time: 3:47 a.m. Entered by Administrator. The text is short. The patient has been transferred to another facility at the insistence of the family. All documents have been transferred. Gina looks at the screen. She knows the administrator wasn't there at 3 in the morning. She knows no documents were handed over. She knows it's a lie. She closes her laptop. She looks around. The corridor is empty. The doors to the rooms are closed. The guard post is quiet. Jean makes a choice. She won't tell anyone. She sits down in her chair, finishes her coffee, and waits for her shift to start. She won't ask questions. She won't remember the white-haired woman who demanded her keys and looked at her as if she could see right through her. At 9 in the morning, Sun comes to the hospital. He enters the main entrance, nods to the security guard, and takes the elevator to the 3rd floor. A familiar smile crosses his face. He walks to the nurse's station, says a few words to Jen, and enters the office. A minute later, he comes out. The smile is gone. He walks to room 112. He opens the door. He stands in the threshold. He looks at the empty bed, at the disconnected machines, at the IV and still hanging on the stand. He goes inside, checks the bedside table drawers. Empty. Checks the closet. Empty. He takes out his phone, presses a number, waits. Find them, he says into the phone. His voice is low, emotionless. They couldn't have gone far. He puts the phone away. He stands in the middle of the room. He looks at the windowsill where Zoe always put the water bottle, at the chair she sat on, at the sheets that still smell of his friend. Sleep comes out, closes the door, goes to his office. He sits down at the table, opens his laptop, checks the security footage. 3 cameras on the floor. All were turned off last night between 7 and 8. Technical glitch, the system says. Sun closes the laptop, looks out the window. He thinks about Zoya, about her white hair, about her silk dress, about her voice when she said no. He was wrong about her. He didn't think she could. He didn't think she would dare. He picks up the phone and dials another number. Get the footage from the cameras at the exits of the city. All the cars that left yesterday between 8 and midnight. Find the woman with white hair. He hangs up. It's quiet in Ward 112. The machines aren't beeping. The IV isn't dripping. The chair by the window is empty. Zoe has been driving for 4 hours. Jean is asleep in the back seat. She glances in the rearview mirror every few seconds. The dark road is empty. The headlights pick out a patch of asphalt and the trees on either side. She doesn't know if she's being followed. She doesn't know if Sun has managed to rouse the people. She only knows that she needs to move on, to a place where no one knows her, to a place where there are no hospitals controlled by Sun. She thinks about that place, a small medical center on the outskirts. She worked there many years ago before she met Jin. An old building, good doctors, poor equipment, but they have no connection with Sun. She's sure of it. It's 4 in the morning. Jean hasn't woken up for 3 hours. Zoe stops at a gas station. She buys water, bread, and fruit. She gets back to the car. Jin opens his eyes. "Where are we?" The voice is hoarse. "Halfway there," Zoe says. 4 more hours. He nods. He takes the water and drinks it in small sips. His hands are shaking. "Are you sure you can go there?" he asks. "There's a doctor I know who works there." She doesn't ask unnecessary questions. Jean looks at her, his face looking even paler in the darkness of the salon. "I didn't know you were a doctor," he says. "You didn't ask." She starts the car and drives out onto the highway. The sun rises as they approach the city. Small houses, narrow streets, trees. Zoe drives slowly, looking at the license plates. She finds the right building. It's 1 story with white walls and a sign in Korean and English. The parking lot is almost empty. Zoe parks, gets out, opens the door for Jean, helps him out. He stands, holding onto her. His legs give way. She wraps her arms around his waist and leads him to the entrance. It's quiet inside. The reception area is small, with chairs along the walls and a reception desk. Behind the desk is a woman in a white coat. Seeing them, she stands up. "I need Lena," Zoe says. "Tell her Zoe is here." The woman looks at Jin, at his pale face, at how he can barely stand. She nods and walks into the hallway. A minute later, a woman of about 50 comes out. Her dark hair is pulled back into a bun, and she's wearing thin-framed glasses. She looks at Zoya, and her expression changes. "Zoe," she says. "What happened?" "I need help," Zoe says. "He needs help." Lena comes closer. She looks at Jin, her eyes quickly assessing his condition. "Did you call a doctor?" she asks. "No," says Zoe. "We came here ourselves. We need space and silence." Lena looks at her. She sees something in Zoya's eyes. Fear, determination, something else she can't name. "Let's go," says Lena. "The second ward is free." She helps lead Jean down the hallway. The room has 2 beds, a table, a chair, and a window overlooking the courtyard. It's clean, but sparse. The equipment is old. Zoe helps Jin lie down. He immediately closes his eyes. Lena leaves and returns with a blood pressure monitor and a bag containing medications. She checks the pulse and blood pressure and looks at the skin tone and eyes. "What happened to him?" she asks. "Poisoning," Zoe says. "Slow, through an IV. I don't know what substance, but there's sediment in the ampoules." Lena raises her head. She looks at Zoe. "Did you bring the ampoules?" Zoe nods. She takes a bag of empty ampoules from her bag. Lena takes it and holds it up to the light. "I'll send it to the lab," she says. "The results will be in a day." She leaves. Zoe sits down on a chair by the bed. She's here again, in the hospital, in a chair, next to Jean. But now everything is different. The laboratory sends the results within 2 days. Lena enters the room with papers in her hands. Zoe looks up. She hasn't slept for almost all this time, but she stands up straight. "The substance has been found," Lena says. "It's not a medicine. It's an industrial solvent. In small doses, it causes weakness, weight loss, and organ failure. In larger doses, it causes cardiac arrest." Zoe takes the papers. She looks at the titles, numbers, conclusions. He got it for 3 weeks, she says. Every day. Lena sits down opposite. We can get it out of his system, but we need a protocol, an aggressive one. His system is weakened and any risky move could backfire. What protocol? Zoe asks. Lena explains. It's a regimen used in rare cases. Strong blood purifiers. They hit the liver and kidneys, but if the body can handle it, the toxin will be flushed out. Zoe listens. She knows this plan. She knows the risks. She knows that without this, Jin will die. With this, he might die too, but he might also survive. I want to participate, says Zoe. I'll follow every step. Lena looks at her. She remembers Zoe as young, energetic, the best in her class. She remembers Zoe leaving medicine. No one knew why. Are you sure? Lena asks. Yes. Lena nods. She goes to prepare the preparations. Zoe approaches the bed. Jin is asleep. She looks at his face, at his black hair, which has become dull, at his cheekbones, which protrude too much. She sits down next to him and takes his hand. We'll get you out, she says. Treatment begins. Zoe checks every bottle herself. Every time a nurse comes to start an IV, Zoe stands nearby. She watches the tubes being connected, checks the filters, checks the medication name against the prescription. Lena gives her access to all the records. Zoe spends hours studying the chart, checking the readings, and calculating the dosages. Jin doesn't eat. She feeds him with a spoon, soup, which the kitchen brings, water with salt and sugar to keep up his strength. He swallows with difficulty, but she takes her time. Every sip is a victory. On the third day, blood cleansing begins. The machine hums. Tubes run from Jean's hands to the machine. Zoe sits nearby and watches. Blood leaves the body, passes through filters, and returns. The procedure lasts 4 hours. Jin is thrashing about in his delirium. He says something in Korean, something Zoe doesn't understand. He calls out to someone. Then he goes quiet. Zoe wipes the sweat from his forehead, checks his pulse, counts the beats. Lena comes in every hour, checks the readings, nods, exits. On the 4th day, the procedure is repeated. On the 5th, again. Jin grows even weaker. He doesn't open his eyes. His breathing becomes shallow. Zoe doesn't move from the bed. She sleeps in the chair, waking every time her breathing changes. Lena says it's normal. The body is fighting. The toxin is being expelled, but the price is strength. Zoe believes. She has no other choice. On the 7th day, Jin opens his eyes. He looks at the ceiling. He turns his head. He sees Zoe, asleep in the chair. Her head is thrown back. Her hands are in her lap. She looks tired. There are dark circles under her eyes. Her white hair is loose, falling over her shoulders. Jin looks at her for a long time. Then he turns to the window. The sun is shining outside. He hasn't seen the sun for many days. He tries to move his hand. His fingers move. Weakly, but they move. He tries to sit up. It doesn't work. His body doesn't obey. He lies back down. Zoe wakes up from the sound. She sees that his eyes are open. She gets up and approaches the bed. "Good morning," she says. "Good morning," he replies. His voice is quiet but clear. She checks his pulse, his blood pressure. She looks at his skin color. "The numbers are better," she says. "The toxin is almost out." Jin nods. "The phone," he says. Zoe freezes. "For what?" "You need to call." She looks at him. She understands who he's talking about those she's never seen, but knows they exist. Jin's people, those who await his orders. "You're not ready yet," she says. "I'm ready," says Jean. "Give me the phone." Zoe is silent for a few seconds. Then she takes her phone out of her bag and hands it to him. Jin takes it. His fingers tremble. He dials the number from memory, waits. "It's me," he says into the phone. His voice changes, firmer. "I'm alive. Listen." He speaks in short phrases, in Korean. Zoe doesn't understand the words, but she gets the meaning. He gives orders. He asks questions. He receives answers. His face hardens. The conversation lasts 5 minutes. Jean hangs up and leans back on the pillow. "He's looking for us," Jin says. "Sun has everyone awake. He's checking hospitals within a 500-kilometer radius." Zoe sits on the edge of the bed. "We're safe. This place isn't in his clutches." "Bye," says Jean. "But he will find it. He won't stop." He looks at Zoe. "What do you want to do?" she asks. Jin closes his eyes, thinks. "First, get well." he says. Then answer. A week passes. Jin is getting stronger. He can now sit up in bed. He eats on his own. He speaks in complete sentences. Zoe spends her days at the hospital. She assists the nurses, checks appointments, and monitors procedures. Lena trusts her completely. But Zoe does more than that. She starts calling to other hospitals, to medical centers, to laboratories. She introduces herself by different names. She asks about the drug accounting system, about prescription protocols, about how hazardous substances are stored. She quickly grasps the scale. Sun controls more than just one hospital. He controls a network, 3 major medical centers in the city, 5 private clinics, 2 laboratories. It's the same system everywhere, the same approach. Drugs disappear. Prescriptions change without explanation. Patients die or get better, depending on who pays. Zoe is collecting information. She's writing down names, dates, the names of the doctors who work at Sona, the names of those who are against. She finds 3 cases similar to Jin's, men who were interfering with Sun's business. All of them were admitted to his hospitals. All of them died within a few months. The diagnoses were different, but they all contained the same drug, the one she found in the ampoules. Zoe closes her notebook. She sits in the empty office, looking out the window. She thinks about Sonia, about his smile, about how he sat by Jin's bed and pretended to care. She thinks about those who died, about the families who don't know the truth. She picks up the phone and dials Lena's number. I need help, she says. I need records. Everything there is on the hospitals in Sona. Lena is silent for a few seconds. It's dangerous, she says. I know. You could get hurt. Jin could get hurt. I know, Zoe repeats. But if we don't do this, he'll do to someone else what he did to Jean. Lena sighs. I'll see what I can get. Jin is getting better, but not enough to be discharged. My blood counts are still unstable. The toxin has been released, but my organs are functioning intermittently. My liver is failing. My kidneys are too. Lena is calling a consultation. 3 doctors, including her. They're sitting in a small office, leafing through test results, arguing. Zoe stands at the door and listens. Aggressive therapy is needed, says one doctor. If we don't start now, the liver won't recover. Aggressive therapy will kill him, says another. He doesn't have the resources. He won't be able to withstand it. There's a protocol, says Lena. It's experimental. We used it twice. Once successful, once not. 50%, says the first doctor. Yes, says Lena. But without him, it's 0. Zoe opens the door. She comes in. I agree, she says. The doctors look at her. You're not a doctor, one of them says. You can't make decisions like that. I'm his wife, Zoe says. I make decisions for him until he can't. She looks at Lena. Tell me the protocol. Lena explains. These are powerful drugs that stimulate cell regeneration. They're aggressive. They cause fever, weakness, and nausea. The body reacts as if it's fighting a serious illness. But if it holds out, the organs will begin to recover. 3 days, says Lena. We'll administer this drug for 3 days. Then a week of observation. If the body accepts it, it recovers. If not, she doesn't finish. Zoe understands. Go ahead, Zoe says. The doctors exchange glances. Lena nods. We start tomorrow. The first day begins. Zoe isn't sleeping. She's standing by the bed, watching the nurse connect the IV, checking the bottle, checking the dosage, checking the filter. The drug begins to enter Jin's body after 15 minutes. The first reaction occurs after 20 minutes. Jin starts to shiver. His body shakes violently. His teeth chatter. She covers him with a second blanket, then a third. The trembling does not go away. An hour later, the temperature rises to 39. The forehead is burning. Breathing quickens. Zoe wipes his face with a damp cloth and places a cold compress on his forehead. Jin opens his eyes, looks at her, says nothing, closes them. The second hour passes. The third. Jin is thrashing around. He's groaning. His hands are clutching the sheets. Zoe is holding his hand, saying something quietly. He doesn't hear. Lena comes in every hour, checks blood pressure, listens to the heart, nods, leaves. By evening, the temperature drops. Jin becomes quiet. He's pale, drenched in sweat, but his breathing is more even. Zoe doesn't leave. She sits on a chair looking at him. At night, Everything repeats itself. The fever returns. Jin is tossing and turning again. Zoe wipes away the sweat again, changes the compresses, and takes his pulse. She doesn't sleep all night. On the second day, everything is the same. Fever, trembling, sweating. Jin is getting weaker. He doesn't wake up. Zoe is starting to worry. "It's normal," says Lena. "The body is fighting." Zoe nods. She doesn't move from the bed. On the third day, what she feared happened. Jin stops breathing. The machine starts beeping. Zoe jumps up. She presses the call button. Lena runs in with the nurses. They turn off the IV. They turn on oxygen. They give an injection. Zoe is standing by the wall, looking. She doesn't pray. She doesn't cry. She looks at Jin's face and thinks, "Not now." A minute passes. 2. Jin takes a breath. Then another. The machine stops beeping. Lena straightens up. She looks at Zoe. "He did it," she says. On the fourth day, Zoe sits in a chair by the window. It's starting to get light outside. The sky turns from black to gray, then pink. The sun is rising. Zoe looks at him. She hasn't slept for 3 days. Her eyes are closing. But she fights on. She glances at the bed. Jin is asleep. His face is calm. His breathing is even. His skin is not as pale as it was yesterday. Lena comes in with the tests. She smiles. "The numbers are up," she says. "The liver is recovering. The kidneys are too." Zoe takes the papers. She looks at the numbers. She knows what these numbers mean. "He will live," says Lena. Zoe nods. She puts the papers on the table. She sits back in the chair. She looks out the window. The sun is already above the horizon. The light falls on the floor, on the walls, on the bed. Zoe closes her eyes. This time, she allows herself to sleep. She sleeps for 2 hours. This is the deepest sleep she has had in months. When she wakes up, Jin is looking at her. "You were sleeping," he says. "Not for long," she says. "You look better. You look better." He smiles. A weak smile, but real. Zoe stands up. She approaches the bed. She takes his hand. Her fingers squeeze in response. Tighter than before. "We did it," she says. "We've only just begun," says Jean. "There's still some finishing to do." He looks at the ceiling. Zoe sees something in his eyes she hasn't seen before. Not anger, not a thirst for revenge. Calm, confidence. He knows what will happen next. Another 2 weeks pass. Jin is gaining weight. Not a lot, but enough for his cheeks to stop looking hollow. He's eating normally and sleeping soundly at night. Doctors say that it is possible to start moving. Zoe helps him out of bed. He stands for 3 seconds the first time and then sits back down. His legs are shaking. The next day, he stands for 10 seconds. On the third day, a minute. On the fourth day, he takes a step. Zoe holds his arm. He leans on her. Slowly, very slowly, they walk across the ward, from the bed to the door. 5 steps. Jin stops. He breathes heavily, but he stands. "More?" Zoe asks. "1 more," he says. They reach the door, turn back. 5 more steps. Jin sits down on the bed. He smiles, weakly but sincerely. "I haven't walked for a month," he says. "I forgot what it's like." "You'll remember," says Zoe. Every day they do more. 10 steps. 15. To the end of the hallway and back. Jin grows stronger. His hands no longer shake. His voice grows louder. He laughs at the jokes Zoe tells. But Zoe sees that he's thinking about something else. About what awaits them beyond the hospital walls. While Jin recovers, Zoe works. She collects a folder. A thick one, with papers, photographs, printouts. The folder contains Jean's test results for the past 3 weeks, photos of the ampoules with sediment, a phone recording of a nurse changing a vial, a list of hospitals Sun oversees, the names of 3 men who died in his clinics under similar circumstances, the dates of their deaths, the diagnoses they were given, the substance found in the blood of one of them. Same thing. Zoe adds the nurse's testimony to the file. Not Jen. The other one, the one who worked the night shift. Zoe found her through friends. The woman agreed to talk. She was afraid, but she agreed. "He forced us," the nurse said. "He said it was for science, that the patients knew. We didn't know it was poison." Zoe wrote down her words and had them certified by a lawyer she found through Lena. The folder is growing. Zoe adds something new every day. She doesn't know why she's collecting this. For the police? For the court? For something else? She only knows that Sun must answer, and she will have proof. Jin sees the folder. He takes it and flips through it. He reads every page. He remains silent. "You've done more than my people have done in a month," he says. "I do what I have to do," Zoe says. Jin closes the folder, looks at it. "What do you want to do with this?" "I want him to pay." Jin nods. He will pay. 3 weeks later, Gina is discharged. He can walk on his own, slowly but surely. He eats normally. He sleeps without nightmares. The doctors say his recovery is complete, but he needs to take care of himself. Zoe packs her things. The folder with the evidence is in a separate bag. She takes it with her. They get into the car. Zoe is driving. Jean is in the passenger seat. "Where to?" Zoe asks. "Home," says Jean. She starts the car and drives out of the parking lot. On the way, she takes out her phone and dials a number. "Who are you calling?" asks Jin. "Sonu," Zoe says. She presses call. She waits. After the third ring, he answers. "I'm listening." "This is Zoe," she says. Silence on the line. "You're alive," says Dream. Not a question, a statement. "Yes," says Zoe. "We're alive, and we want to thank you." "Thank you? For your care, for your treatment, for everything you've done for us." Her voice is calm. She speaks as if discussing the weather. "I don't understand," says Sun. "You'll understand," Zoe says. "I'll see you soon. I want to give you something in person." She hangs up. Jin looks at her. "He'll be nervous now," he says. "Let him," says Zoe. "Let him think we know. Let him think we're coming to him. Let him wait." She turns the steering wheel. The car turns onto the highway. "What about us?" asks Jin. "And we'll go home. And we'll wait." The house they live in is on the outskirts. It's big, with tall trees all around. Zoe loves this house. It's quiet here. When they arrive, there are 3 cars parked at the gate. Black, with tinted windows. Zoe looks at Jin. "I was waiting for them," he says. They park. They get out of the car. Jean goes first. He stands up straight. His gait is confident. People get out of the cars, 5 of them, all in formal suits. They look at Jean, then at Zoe. One of them, the eldest, with gray hair at his temples, approaches first. "Boss," he says. "We thought you weren't coming back." "He's back," says Jean. "Come in." They walk into the house. Zoe brings up the rear. Inside, they sit in the living room. Jean is in a chair. Zoe is next to him on the couch. The people sit opposite each other. Jin speaks, briefly, about what happened, about the hospital, about Sonia, about what he learned. People listen in silence. Their faces are expressionless, but Zoe sees their fists clench, their shoulders tense. "A dream," says the eldest. "We thought he was ours." "He's one of our own," says Jean. "He's one of our own in the sheepfold. What do you want to do?" Jean turns to Zoe. "Show them." Zoe opens her bag, takes out a folder, places it on the table. "It's all here," she says. "Every day, every drug, every name." The elder takes the folder. He leafs through it. His face hardens with each page. "That's enough to put him in jail," he says. "Jailing is too easy," says Jean. "He'll die of old age in prison. And he has to answer now." The elder raises his head. He looks at Jin, then at Zoe. "What do you suggest?" Jin is silent. He looks at Zoe. She understands. He waits for her to say something. "I want him to know," Zoe says. "I want him to know that he's been seen, that he's been figured out, that he's been found." "And then?" the elder one asks. "And then let Jin decide." Everyone looks at Jin. He sits in a chair, straight, calm. There is no hatred in his eyes, only coldness. "Call him," he says. "Tell him that I want to meet, that I'm ready to forget everything if he pays." Zoe looks at him. Understands, it's a trap. At night, when the guests leave, Zoe and Jean are left alone. Jin is sitting on the edge of the bed. He's looking out the window. Zoe comes over and sits down next to him. "Are you sure?" she asks. "Yes," he says. "He won't believe that you're ready to forget. He'll believe I'm weak, that I'm afraid, that I want to live in peace. He's always thought of me as weak." Zoe is silent. Jean turns to her. He takes her hand. His fingers are strong, not like they were in the hospital. They squeeze her hand confidently. "I'm not asking you to participate," he says. "You've already done more than anyone." "I won't stand by," Zoe says. Jin looks at her. In his eyes, she sees gratitude and fear, Not for himself, for her. He stands up, walks over to the table, opens the drawer, takes out an envelope, white, thick, comes back, hands it to Zoe. What is this? She asks. Open it. Zoe opens the envelope. Inside are documents. In her name. She reads, it's a power of attorney. For everything. For accounts. For property. For decisions. If anything happens to Jean, everything goes to her. She looks at him. Do you think something will happen? I'm thinking about you being protected. I don't want to be protected. I want to be with you. Jin sits down next to her. He hugs her. She feels his warmth, his strength. You'll be with me, he says. But if something goes wrong, you need to know that everything I have is now yours. Zoe clutches the envelope in her hand. She doesn't cry. She nods. Okay, she says, but nothing will go wrong. Nothing will go wrong, he repeats. They sit in silence. The trees rustle outside the window. The house is dark. Only the moon shines through the glass. Jin rests his head on her shoulder. She feels his breathing. Even, calm. He's alive. He's here. With her. Nothing else matters. 3 days later, a response comes from Sona. He agrees to meet. He offers a location. His country house. In a week. Jin is sitting in the living room, reading a message on his phone. Zoe is standing by the window. He took the bait, says Jean. He thinks I'm coming to beg. Are you coming alone? Zoe asks. No. With you. Zoe turns around. For what? Because he's afraid of you, says Jin. You're the only one who's got him. He'll want to see you. He'll want to show you he's not afraid. Zoe thinks. What should I do? What you do best, says Jean. Be the one he doesn't expect. The next day, Zoe takes out the dress. Silk, ivory, the very one. She irons it and hangs it on the closet door. She decides that she will go in it. She wants Sun to see her, to recognize her, to remember the woman who refused $1 million, who snatched her husband from under his nose, who came to his office and named the poison. She wants him to remember this fear. Jean looks at the dress. It suits you, he says. I know, Zoe says. The day of the meeting is approaching. Zoe puts on a dress. Her hair is loose, falling down her back to her waist. She looks in the mirror. Black skin, white dress, white hair. She looks as if she's glowing. Jin is waiting by the door. He's wearing a black suit. He looks collected and calm. No one would say that a month ago he couldn't get out of bed. They get into the car. One of Jin's men is driving. 2 more cars are driving behind. Zoe looks out the window. The city is left behind. The road winds between the hills. An hour later, they arrive at the gates. Tall, wrought iron. Behind them is a house, large, stone, with columns. The gates open. They drive in. Zoe sees cars in the parking lot. 3. Expensive ones. 2 men are standing at the entrance. They have nothing in their hands, but Zoe knows their security. They get out of the car. Jean takes Zoe's hand. They walk toward the entrance. The men at the door let them in. Inside is a spacious hall, a marble floor, a chandelier, and a staircase leading to the 2nd floor. Sleep comes out of the corridor. He's wearing a gray suit. His hair is slicked back. There's a smile on his face. Jin, he says. I'm glad to see you're well. He looks at Zoe. The smile doesn't change, but his eyes grow darker. And you, he says. You look wonderful. Zoe doesn't answer. Sleep gestures to invite them into the office. The office is large. It has a dark wood desk, leather chairs, and paintings on the walls. There's a garden outside the window. Sun sits down at the table. Jin sits opposite him. Zoe sits next to him. So, says Sun, folding his hands on the table. You wanted to talk. Yes, says Jean. About what you did. Sleep smiles. I don't know what you're talking about. You know, Zoe says. Her voice is calm, even. You know about every ampule. About every day. About every night when your nurse changed the bottles. Sleep looks at her. The smile disappears. You have no evidence, he says. Yes, says Zoe. She takes a phone out of her small bag. She places it on the table. She taps the screen. Sun's voice fills the room. Jean was my friend, but business is business. He got in the way. Sun looks at the phone. His face turns pale. You're smarter than I thought. I'll let him go quietly, without any noise. Zoe turns off the recording. That's enough, she says. For the court, for your partners, for everyone who thinks you're one of them. Sun sits motionless. his hands clenched into fists on the table. What do you want? He asks. Zoe looks at Sona. She's in no hurry. I want you to hear, she says. She opens her bag, takes out a folder, places it on the table. It's all here. Every drug you ordered, every ampule you hid, every death you signed off on. She opens the folder, turns the pages. The first one, Kim, 52 years old. He fell ill last year. He was admitted to your hospital. He died 4 months later. The diagnosis was liver failure. The same substance was found in Jin's blood. The dream is silent. The second one, Pak, 48 years old. Your clinic. Died 3 months later. Officially, cardiac arrest. She turns the page. The third, Choi, 35 years old, the youngest. He died 2 months later. Fast, even for you. She closes the folder. 3 lives, plus my husband. Those are just the ones I've found in 2 weeks. How many more? How many who left no trace? Sun sits motionless, his face stony. Are you talking about money? He asks. I'll give you money. Any money. No, says Zoe. You already offered money. I refused. What do you want? Zoe gets up. She goes to the window. She stands with her back to it. Sonu, I want you to know, she says. I want you to know that you lost. Not because someone is stronger, not because someone has more power, but because a woman in a silk dress found a vial in a trash can. She turns around. You thought I'd buy it, that I'd take the money and leave. You thought I was afraid. You were wrong. She returns to the table and sits down. Now I have everything I need to destroy you. Not physically. I'm not like you. I'll do it differently. Your partners will find out. Your doctors will find out. Your patients will find out. You'll lose everything. The hospitals, the money, your name. Everything. Sleep looks at her. Zoe sees fear in his eyes. For the first time in a long time. And then? He asks. And then, Zoe says, you'll be alone. In an empty room. Without power. Without protection. And then those you tried to kill will come for you. She looks at Jin. He sits quietly. His hands folded on the table. His face is expressionless. He simply waits. Sun looks at Jin. Will you let her speak for you? He asks. She speaks for herself, Jean replies. I'm here to listen. Sleep wakes up. His hands are shaking. He tries to hide it, but Zoe sees. You don't understand, he says. If I fall, many will fall. Doctors, investors, politicians. You won't destroy me. You'll destroy the system. A system that kills people, Zoe says. Yes, I want to destroy it. Sleep laughs. The laughter is nervous, broken. You're naive. You think the truth will prevail, that people will want to hear it. They won't. It's convenient for them. It benefits them to have me at the top. Maybe, says Zoe, but I'll tell you anyway. Sleep grabs a folder from the table, opens it, flips through the pages. That's not enough, he says. It's circumstantial evidence. It'll be destroyed in court. In court, maybe, says Zoe, but not in people's minds, not in the minds of your partners. They won't want to deal with someone who poisons their friends. Sleep looks at her. His face is distorted. He sweeps the folder off the table. Papers scatter across the floor. What do you want? He shouts. Tell me the price. Zoe looks at the papers on the floor. Then she looks at Sona. $1 million, she says. The dream freezes. You want money? Yes, says Zoe. $1 million. Exactly what you offered me for my silence. She gets up. But not to me. You'll give that $1 million to the families of those you killed. Kim, Pak, Choi, and to those we still find. Sleep looks at her. Doesn't believe it. That's all? Money? That's all. And your word that you'll leave. From the city. From the country. It doesn't matter. But you'll leave. Close the hospitals. Stop the business. Sun stands in the middle of the office. His face twitches. He looks at Jin. Do you agree? Jin stands up slowly. I agree, he says. On one condition. Which one? Jin approaches Sonu. Stops in his tracks. If you ever come back, if I find out you've reopened the hospital, if I hear anyone's been hurt, I'll come myself, and there won't be any conversation. Dream looks into Jin's eyes. He sees something there that makes him take a step back. Okay, he says. I agree. Zoe and Jean leave the house. The sun is setting. The sky is orange. The trees cast long shadows. Zoe walks to the car, but Jin stops. Wait, he says. He takes out his phone, presses the button. People get out of the cars waiting at the gate. 5 of them. They walk quickly toward the house. Zoe looks at Jin. What's happening? He won't leave, says Jean. You know it. I know it. He'll pay the money, pretend to leave, and then come back in a month. That's how his system works. You promised him. I promised that if he came back, I would come. But I'm not going to wait. Jin's men enter the house. Zoe hears voices. Then silence. A few minutes later, Sun is taken out. He looks confused. His tie is askew. His jacket is unbuttoned. Sun's guards are nowhere to be seen. You promised! Song shouts, looking at Jin. You said you'd let me go. I said I'd let you go if you left. Jin answers calmly. You weren't going to leave. Sleep tries to escape. It is held tightly. Kill me, and you will be no different from me, he screams. Jin looks at him. His face is calm. I'm not going to kill you, he says. I just want you to understand what it's like to be trapped, with no way out, with no control. He turns to his people. Take it away. Sun is taken away. He screams, but the screams fade away in the distance. Zoe stands by the car. She looks at Jean. What will you do with him? He'll sit in an empty room for 3 days, says Jean. No phone, no people, no power, just the walls and his thoughts. And then they'll find him. Without money, without connections, without hospitals. And he'll know he was found by those he considered weak. He approaches Zoe and takes her hand. Are you angry? Zoe thinks. No, she says. You're right. He wouldn't have left. I know, says Jean. I know people like that. They get into the car. Jean is driving. Zoe is next to him. He starts the engine and drives out of the parking lot. In the rearview mirror, Sun's house appears smaller. Then it disappears around the corner. 3 days pass. Zoe doesn't ask where Sun is being held. She doesn't want to know. Jin leaves in the morning and returns in the evening. He's calm. He says little. On the 3rd day, he invites Zoe to go with him. You don't have to, he says, but I think you should see. She agrees. They drive to an industrial area, buildings with shuttered windows, empty streets. Jean parks near one of the warehouses. It's cold inside. Concrete walls, high ceilings. In the middle is a glass room, transparent walls, a metal door. Inside the room, Sleep. He's sitting on a chair. His clothes are wrinkled. His face is pale. There are circles under his eyes. He looks 10 years older. He sees Jin and Zoe. He jumps up. He goes to the glass. He slams his palms on it. Let me out, he screams. His voice is hoarse. I'll do whatever you say. Money, hospitals, everything. Jin stands in front of the glass. He looks at Sona as calm. You said I was weak, Jin says. You said I wouldn't survive. Look at me. Sleep watches. He sees Jin, healthy, calm, standing upright, not the man who lay in the hospital, unable to raise his arm. You survived, says Sun. I was wrong. That's not where you were wrong, says Jin. You were wrong when you thought I wouldn't find out, when you thought she'd keep quiet, when you thought the truth wouldn't come out. He turns to Zoe. She found you. Alone. Without weapons. Without people. Without power. Only with intelligence and the desire to save me. You lost to a woman in a dress. Sleep looks at Zoe. There's hatred in his eyes, but underneath it, there's fear. What now? He asks. Now you're going to get out, says Jean. You're going to get in your car and drive away. The hospitals are being taken over by those whose work you interfered with. Your accounts are frozen. Your partners know everything. He takes a key out of his pocket and throws it on the floor by the door. The exit is there, he says, pointing to the warehouse door. He takes Zoe's hand. They leave. Zoe looks back at him, saying goodbye. Sleep is standing behind the glass, looking at the key on the floor. He's not moving. They are sitting in the car. Jean is driving. Zoe is in the passenger seat. Sun emerges from the warehouse door. He squints in the light. He looks around. He sees their car. He stands there for a few seconds, then turns and walks the other way. He's not leaving, Zoe says. No, says Jean. He'll try to find help. Call someone. Come back. And what then? Jin looks in the rearview mirror. The dream is walking down an empty street. They'll find him, says Jean. But not us. Those he deceived. Those who lost money. Those who lost loved ones. Zoe looks at him. You knew it would happen. I knew it. This isn't my revenge, it's justice. Everyone he hurt will get a chance to hold him accountable. She's silent, thinking about the 3 men whose names she found in the folder, about the families who didn't know the truth, about Jean, who almost died. You're right, she says. This isn't our revenge. It's theirs. They sit in silence. The sun sets. It gets dark outside. An hour later, Jin's phone rings. He picks it up and listens. Yes, he says. Okay, hangs up. Zoe looks at him. Is it over? She asks. Jin turns to her. There's no joy in his eyes. No sadness. Only calm. It's all over, he says. She doesn't ask what happened. She doesn't want to know. She only knows that Dream will never hurt anyone she loves again. Jean starts the car. Let's go home, he says. They drive all night. The road is empty. Darkness outside the window. Stars in the sky. Jean drives slowly, unhurriedly. Zoe looks at him. He'd changed. Not outwardly, but internally. Something about him had become different. Calmer. More confident. As if he'd shed a burden he'd carried for years. She thinks about what happened. About the hospital. About the IVs. About the nights when she lay awake and counted his breaths. About the moment when he stopped breathing. About how she stood against the wall and watched as the doctors brought him back to life. She thinks about Sonia. About his smile. About the briefcase with money. About how she said no. She thinks about her past. About leaving medicine. About not thinking she'd return. About how the knowledge she hid for years saved his life. Jin turns onto a familiar road. Trees, fields, silence. Their house is visible in the distance. He parks at the gate, turns off the engine. They sit in silence. They don't leave. They just sit next to each other. I want to say something, says Jean. Zoe looks at him. When I was lying in that room, he says, I thought it was the end. I felt my strength fading. I couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't speak. I thought I was going to die. He takes her hand. But I heard you, every night. You sat next to me and spoke. I didn't understand the words, but I heard your voice. And I knew that as long as you were near, I wouldn't die. Zoe is silent. She squeezes his hand. You saved me, he says. Not the doctors, not the medicine. You. I just did what I had to do, she says. No, says Jean. You did what no one else would. You believed. You didn't give up. You found the truth where others would have passed it by. He brings her hand to his lips, kisses it. I'm in your debt forever. You're not in debt, Zoe says. You're my husband. He smiles. A smile she hasn't seen in a long time. Warm, genuine. They get out of the car. Dawn is just breaking. The sky in the east brightens, turns pink, then gold. They walk toward the house. Jean walks confidently, without leaning on her. Zoe is next to her. Their hands are linked. She opens the door. It's quiet inside. It smells of wood, and the flowers she placed in a vase before leaving. Jin closes the door, turns to face her. What now? He asks. Zoe looks at him, at his black hair, at his face, which is no longer pale, at his eyes, which look at her with love. Now we live, she says. He hugs her, tightly, in a way he hasn't been able to hug her for many weeks. She feels his warmth, his strength, his breath on her temple. We're alive, he repeats. The sun rises over the house. Light falls through the windows, onto the floor, onto them. They stand in the hallway, hugging, and are in no hurry. There's a whole day ahead, and many days after that. Zoe lays her head on his shoulder, closes her eyes. She feels his hand on her back. She hears his heart, even, strong. He's alive. He's here, with her. And that's enough.